Beneath all the political babble that we see happening today, all the talking heads screaming at one another over various things, the president going out and golfing with John Boehner and patting each other in the back, these two guys, and loving it and smiling for the press, while we're all distracted and going our ways, the government is moving forward, obviously with some kind of agenda. The U.S. Patriot Act has been renewed, which grants the government amazing powers to do anything they want, including allowing the FBI and government agents to come into your home and do sneak and peek searches and not even tell you there. Search your home. Remember, we have the Fourth Amendment, which guarantees against unreasonable searches and seizures. Or maybe we don't have the Fourth Amendment. That's probably the conclusion. Now we are told, and just released here last week, the Justice Department announces that the FBI's 14,000 agents are going to be granted expanded new powers to do all kinds of things. And basically what the powers are, we haven't seen them yet, and there's a reason they announce these things before they actually show you what they're actually going to do, is that they've indicated the FBI is going to basically be able to infiltrate different groups, maybe infiltrate the Rutherford Institute, the ACLU, whoever seems to be the enemy at the moment, but mainly it seems to be peace activists. Go through trash, go through your 30-year-old goods up in your attic to see if you are some kind of terrorist, anarchist, or enemy of the government. The key here is they don't need a factual basis to do this. They don't have to have some kind of credible evidence that you are an enemy of the government, a terrorist. It's just that you may be doing something a particular agent doesn't like or feels alarmed by. There are a number of reasons for this. One, I do think there is an establishment in Washington, D.C., which we call our government, that moves forward. And as John Lennon once said, who was also a target of FBI, the government today basically just wants to control people. And with this amazing amount of power they have to control, they want to make sure that those who cause trouble are kept down. And it's mainly, as I said, so-called peace activists today seem to be targeted. Moreover, as one former FBI agent has said, and I quote him in my commentary that's on the Rutherford Institute website at rutherford.org, it's entitled "The New FBI Powers, Cointelpro on Steroids." And you should read it because it's much more in detail than anything I can do here. A former FBI agent said, you've got all these agents around the country and there are only maybe a handful of terrorists. They have to have something to do. So with time on their hands, obviously they're targeting certain people, such as Scott Crow, a self-styled anarchist who mainly demonstrates against the government. He doesn't like what the government's doing in the war, how they're spending their taxes. And amazingly so, he just found out with his attorneys through a FOIA request, Freedom of Information request, that the FBI had 440 pages of documents on him where they had studied every move he had made, listened to his telephone calls, tried to infiltrate groups. And this is a pattern we're seeing now. The FBI has actually infiltrated Quaker groups. We all know who the Quakers are, very peaceful folks in different cities, to see what they're doing. They become one of the Quakers and act like they're a Quaker and study the Quakers from the inside. This is all at taxpayer expense, by the way, folks. It takes a lot of money to do all this snooping on American citizens. And so basically what we are doing, we're funding a spying agency to spy on us if they don't like us. Now, I'm a high-profile figure who often speaks out against government abuse. I've had a number of people say, boy, you must have a big file. Well, I might be. But there's a bit of paranoia here, you know. Remember, they actually listened in on Martin Luther King Jr., the great peace activist who opposed the Vietnam War and tried to rally African Americans and got the Civil Rights Act passed. They listened to his telephone calls. One agent actually sent a letter to Martin Luther King saying, you should just go ahead and commit suicide or we're going to release all this secret information on you. Well, thankfully, King didn't listen. He just kept moving on. Following what happened to Martin Luther King Jr., John Lennon, and a number of peace activists in the late 60s and early 70s, Senator Church established the Church Committee where they investigated the FBI, and come to find out the FBI had what they called a COINTEL program where they went out to target peace activists, which they did, anti-war activists, and collected all types of information. In other words, they acted like a secret police. And they were greatly chastised at the time, and the Attorney General, who was part of the government at that time, pulled back a bit and gave some over-regulations to the FBI and said it's time to curtail some of their powers. But over the last 30 or 40 years, those have been greatly relaxed, and principally under John Ashcroft, who was George W. Bush's Attorney General. After 9/11, it was figured, well, we have all these terrorists running around the country, so we need all these expansive powers. And come to find out that wasn't true. But because of that, massive files have been built up on a lot of Americans. Again, I emphasize reading my commentary at Rutherford.org, The New FBI Powers, Cointelpro on Steroids, because, again, it goes into detail a lot more than I can say here. But the question is, if we've erected a secret police, which is essentially what the FBI are, if they can come into your home and they don't have to tell you that they're there, with their nefarious national security letters, they can ask you for any documents and you have to turn those over or face jail time. If they can listen on your telephone calls, read your emails, your text messages, know everything about you, use mobile body scanners to drive by your home, and check out what you're doing in your home. They can actually see through the walls if you're eating dinner, having sex with your wife, or whatever. We've erected a secret police. What can we do? First of all, the American people have to get engaged. We are the government, not the FBI, not the Defense Department, not the President of the United States, but we are the government. We have to take charge. That means we have to get off our butts, get up off our couches, turn the television off, and get active in our government. Local government, a great place to act early. Get some local ordinances basically contradicting what the FBI can do. Fight back. You can do these things. It happened for a while in the Patriot Act. Communities across the country just said that we will not enforce the Patriot Act. You can do many good things, but you have to get active. You have to be vigilant. Remember the people who wrote the Constitution, Thomas Jefferson? He said the key to freedom is vigilance. Well, Americans aren't vigilant anymore. Not only are Americans not vigilant, they don't even know what's in the documents. Most Americans don't even know what's in the Fourth Amendment, which again guards us against unreasonable searches and seizures by the government, which is exactly what's happening. The second thing is we have to move forward against the Congress that we have, our representatives. They need to pass comprehensive civil rights legislation reinstating the protections of the Fourth Amendment, which have been stripped away, limit these agencies like the FBI, secret police agencies, the intelligence agencies, and give us remedies when we find out we're being spied upon, remedies so that we can fight back. Martin Luther King did that for the African Americans in the Civil Rights Movement. We need to do it for all citizens because the Fourth Amendment has been wiped away. Congress can resurrect that Fourth Amendment with legislation, but we're going to have to hold them accountable. If not, folks, we are very close to moving into a police state where we will have no freedoms, and we're going to wake up one morning and it's all going to be gone, the things that we cherish the most. I've had a number of people say, boy, you must have a big Well, I might be. But there's a bit of paranoia here, you know. Remember,